My fiancé yelled at me, "You're suffocating me. I need space from you and your insecurities." I said, "Okay." That night, I packed only my essentials and disappeared without a sound. 3 months later, he tracked me down and showed up outside my apartment, holding something that made my heartbeat drop the second I saw it. My name is Elena Moore. I'm 33 years old, and I was supposed to get married last June. Supposed to. Nicholas and I had been together for 5 years, engaged for one. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, one of those loud, crowded bars where conversations blur into laughter and music. Somehow we heard each other anyway. He was charming in an unassuming way, dry humor, steady presence, the kind of man who made you feel chosen, not chased. We moved in together after a year. It felt natural, easy. I thought we were building something solid. The cracks didn't explode all at once. They crept in quietly, like water seeping into walls. Around the 4th month of our engagement, Nicholas changed. Not dramatically, just subtly enough that I kept questioning myself instead of him. He started getting irritated when I asked about his day, rolled his eyes when I suggested we spend weekends together. He went out more. Coworkers, after-work drinks, spontaneous plans that always seemed to materialize after I'd already made dinner. He'd come home late with explanations that made sense if you didn't look too closely. And I looked closely. That was my mistake, apparently. I got insecure. I won't pretend I didn't. I asked questions. Where were you? Who were you with? When will you be home? I hated the way I sounded, the way my voice softened at the end of sentences like I was asking permission to care. Something in my gut told me something was wrong. But instead of trusting it, I internalized it, made it about me. Maybe I was too much. Maybe I was asking for more than I deserved. So I tried harder. I planned date nights. He canceled last minute. I suggested weekend trips. He said he was exhausted. One Tuesday, I bought his favorite takeout and surprised him after work. He barely looked up from his phone. "Thanks," he said, distracted. Each attempt to reconnect felt like pressing my hands against a wall that kept growing thicker. The explosion happened on a Wednesday night in March. I got home around 6, cooked dinner, set the table. By 10:30, the food was cold. When Nicholas finally walked in, I asked, "Where were you?" He dropped his bag on the counter. "Out, with people from work." "You said you'd be home by 8. Plans changed." "You could have texted," he sighed. "I'm an adult, Elena. I don't need to check in every 5 minutes." "I'm not asking that," I said, my voice shaking despite my effort. "I'm asking you to communicate." He laughed, not amused, annoyed. "You're insecure. You need constant validation. It's exhausting. I question things because you've been distant." "Nothing's wrong except your paranoia." "Then why won't you talk to me? Why do you shut down every time I try to connect?" That's when he said it. "You're suffocating me. I need space. From you. From your insecurities." The kitchen felt smaller. Every sound, the fridge, the clock, trained in the silence. "Okay," I said. He looked surprised. "Don't be dramatic." "I'm not." I walked into the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and packed. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, charger, essentials only. My hands were steady, my heart wasn't. Part of me waited for him to stop me. He didn't. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Giving you space." "Elena, come on, I didn't mean it like that." "You meant it enough to say it." I zipped the bag, walked past him, grabbed my keys. He called my name. I didn't turn around. I drove without a destination. Ended up at a motel off the highway. The room smelled like cleaning chemicals and old carpet. The TV barely worked. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. My phone buzzed. "Nicholas, come home." "Nicholas, I'm sorry." "Nicholas, please don't do this." I turned my phone off. And that was the night everything changed, even though I didn't know yet how much he'd already destroyed before I ever left. I stayed in that motel for 3 days. I didn't tell anyone where I was. I called in sick to work, ordered greasy takeout I barely touched, and watched the same news loop play over and over on the grainy television. The room never fully got quiet. Pipes knocking, footsteps above me, cars passing on the highway outside. But inside my head, everything was muted. My phone stayed off. When I finally turned it on late the second night, the screen lit up like it was angry with me. Missed calls, voicemails, texts stacked on top of each other like a confession he didn't know how to organize. "Nicholas, please answer." "Nicholas, I didn't mean what I said." "Nicholas, you're overreacting." "Nicholas, I'm scared." "Nicholas, come home. We can fix this." I stared at the messages until the words stopped feeling real. Then I turned the phone off again. On the 4th day, I called my older sister, Marianne, who lived in Denver. Hey, she said, already alert. What's wrong? Can I stay with you for a while? There was a pause, not hesitation, just recalibration. What happened? Nicholas and I are done, I said. I need to get out of town. Another pause, softer this time. Okay, when are you coming? I don't know, this weekend. Stay as long as you need, she said. I'll make up the guest room. That was it. No interrogation, no advice. Marianne had always been good at knowing when someone needed answers and when they just needed shelter. I drove to Denver that Saturday. 10 hours on the road gave my thoughts too much space to echo. I cycled through anger, sadness, self-blame, then nothing at all. I listened to podcasts until the voices annoyed me, then music until the lyrics hurt, then finally drove in silence, listening only to the tires humming against asphalt. When I arrived, Marianne hugged me tightly but didn't cry. She handed me a beer, pointed to the couch, and let the quiet do its job. We didn't talk about Nicholas that night, or the next morning. Sometimes love shows up as restraint. By Monday, I was applying for jobs. Anything remote, anything that paid enough to keep me independent. Within a week, I had interviews. 2 weeks later, I accepted an offer in data analysis. Remote, flexible, clean. I signed a 6-month lease on a studio apartment downtown. It was small, sparse, mine. I moved in with just my duffel bag and a few things I ordered online. A mattress, a desk, a cheap coffee maker. No shared closets, no negotiating space, no tension humming beneath the surface. Nicholas texted for the first week. Then he called. Then the calls stopped. I figured he got the message. Marianne asked once if I planned to talk to him again. No, I said. She nodded and never brought it up again. Life settled into a rhythm that didn't ask much of me. Work, gym, meal prep, sleep. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't miserable either. I was existing. And that felt like progress. I started running in the mornings, found a trail along the river, watched the city wake up as I pushed my body forward, breath by breath. I started reading again. Books I'd abandoned years ago because Nicholas didn't like quiet evenings. I rebuilt myself slowly, carefully, like someone handling fragile glass. 3 months passed. And then, one Saturday morning in late June, everything cracked open again. I was coming back from a run, sweat cooling on my skin, when I saw someone standing outside my building. At first, my brain refused to identify him. Then he turned. Nicholas. He looked wrong. Thinner. Hollowed out. Dark circles under his eyes. His hair longer, unkempt. He wore jeans and a jacket despite the summer heat. And he was holding something against his chest. As I got closer, my heart stopped. Pregnancy tests. 2 of them. Both positive. He looked up, eyes filling the second he saw me. Hey, he said quietly. The word felt obscene between us. What are you doing here? I asked. I needed to see you. How did you even find me? Marianne, he said. She wouldn't tell me at first. I begged her. I told her it was important. I looked at the tests again, like they might change if I stared long enough. Are those real? Yes. When? I found out 2 weeks ago. She's about 10 weeks along. I did the math automatically. 10 weeks. That put conception in April. A full month after I left. My stomach dropped anyway. So, I said slowly, it's not mine to worry about. His face crumpled. Elena, Who is she? I asked. He swallowed. Her name's Rachel. His ex-girlfriend. The woman he'd sworn was ancient history. She works with me, he said quickly. It was a mistake. A mistake, I repeated. We went out after work one night. I was upset. We drank too much. And after that? He didn't answer. How many times, Nicholas? He looked away. Does it matter? Yes, I said, it does. A few, he whispered. 6, maybe 7. The sidewalk felt too public. A woman passed by with her dog and glanced at us, then looked away fast, like she could sense something breaking. Why are you here? I asked finally. Because you deserve to know. Know what? I said. That you moved on in a month? That your ex is pregnant? No, he said desperately. Because I owe you the truth. You owed me that before, I said. He stepped closer. Rachel doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. She told me to handle it myself. I laughed, sharp and hollow. So you came here because the woman you cheated with bailed, I said. And you thought I'd what? Step in? That's not why, he said quickly. Then why, Nicholas? He opened his mouth, closed it. And that silence told me everything. We stood there longer than either of us should have. The city kept moving around us. Cars passing, a couple laughing down the block, someone dragging a suitcase over cracked pavement, and yet it felt like the world had narrowed to the space between Nicholas and me. I broke the silence. When did it really start? He blinked. What? Rachel, I said, when did it start? He hesitated just long enough to give himself away. After you left, he said, too fast. I shook my head slowly. No. His shoulders sagged. Elena. Don't, I said quietly. If you're going to stand here, if you're going to bring this to my doorstep, you don't get to lie anymore. He looked down at the pregnancy tests in his hands like they might save him. January, he said. The word landed heavier than anything else he'd said. January. 2 months before the fight. 2 months before he told me I was suffocating him. 2 months of me apologizing for needs that were never unreasonable. I laughed again, but this time it hurt. So while I was planning a wedding, I said, you were sleeping with your ex. It wasn't like that at first, he said quickly. We just talked about work, about stress. And that made it okay? No, he whispered, but it made it easy. The past rearranged itself in my head. The late nights, the irritation, the way he recoiled when I touched him, the eye rolls, the accusations. My insecurity hadn't been the problem. It had been inconvenient. You let me believe I was losing my mind, I said. You watched me doubt myself. I didn't mean to, he said. I needed you to stop asking questions. There it was. I needed you to feel guilty, he added softly, because if you did, then I didn't have to. The honesty would have mattered months ago. Now it just felt like an autopsy. So you called me suffocating, I said, because you were already drowning. He nodded, tears slipping down his face. I couldn't admit I was the problem. A couple walked past us, glanced at his tears, then at my stillness, and hurried away. What do you want from me now? I asked. I don't know, he said. Forgiveness. Understanding. I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing rise to meet him. I can't give you either, I said. His face collapsed. Then what can you give me? I exhaled slowly. The space you asked for. His breath hitched. I should go, he said. Yes, I agreed. He turned toward his car, then stopped. For what it's worth, he said, voice breaking. You weren't suffocating me. I was suffocating myself with lies, and I blamed you because it was easier. I didn't answer. He left. I went upstairs, sat on my couch, and stared at the wall for an hour. That night, I called Marianne. You gave him my address, I said. She sighed. He said it was important. He got his ex pregnant. Silence. I'm sorry, she said finally. He'd been cheating since January, I said. The whole time I thought I was being paranoid. That's messed up, she said. You okay? I will be. And I meant it. Not because it felt true yet, but because I finally understood what I'd been grieving all along. The next few weeks were strange. I kept waiting to feel anger or devastation. Instead, I felt finished. Like I'd already mourned the relationship back in March, and this was just the paperwork. Nicholas texted once. Nicholas. Rachel's keeping it. I replied, okay. Another week passed. Nicholas, she doesn't want me involved anymore. No reply. Then, a month later. Nicholas, she changed her mind. We're going to try for the baby. I stared at the message. Me. Good luck. That was the last thing I ever said to him. Work picked up. I took on extra projects. My boss noticed, mentioned a promotion. Small victories that felt larger than they were because they were mine. One evening, after a long run that left my legs burning and my lungs screaming, I realized something. I wasn't numb anymore. I was free. 7 months after Nicholas stood outside my building with those pregnancy tests, my life barely resembled the one I'd fled. I got the promotion. Not a flashy title change, but a real one. More responsibility, more money, more trust. I moved into a larger apartment with windows that actually let light in. Bought real furniture instead of assembling everything from cardboard boxes and Allen keys. I learned that choosing a couch alone felt less lonely than compromising on one with the wrong person. Nicholas texted once more after that. Nicholas, do you hate me? I stared at the message for a long time. Did I? Number. Hate requires energy, attention, investment. I'd already spent enough of all three. Me. No. I just don't think about you anymore. He never replied. Life filled the space he left without asking permission. I kept running. Started going farther each time, pushing myself until my body demanded rest. Pain that made sense. Pain that ended. I signed up for a yoga class, mostly because the schedule fit my workday, but I stayed because it taught me how to breathe again, how to exist in silence without feeling like something bad was about to happen. And then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, I met Daniel. It was unremarkable in the way meaningful things often are. We reached for the same book at a coffee shop, some dog-eared paperback about grief and starting over. We laughed awkwardly, exchanged names, ended up sitting at the same table because the place was crowded. He was calm, thoughtful, a little nervous, which I found disarming. We talked about books, then work, then nothing important at all. He asked for my number without pressure. I gave it to him without fear. We took things slowly. No games, no guessing. When he said he'd call, he did. When he made plans, he kept them. On our third date, I told him about Nicholas. Not the dramatized version, just the truth. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it or diminish it. When I finished, he said, "Everyone has a past. What matters is who you are now." That was it. No blame, no curiosity masked as judgment. That's when I knew he was different. Marianne asked once if I regretted leaving the way I did. No, I said. He asked for space. I gave it to him permanently. Sometimes I think about that night in March, how small the kitchen felt, how heavy the air was, how close I came to staying, to apologizing, to shrinking myself just enough to make his lies easier to live with. Walking away didn't feel brave then. It felt like survival. Now it feels like wisdom, because being called suffocating can make you question everything. Your instincts, your worth, your reality. It can make you apologize for asking for honesty, for respect. But here's what I learned. I wasn't suffocating him. I was asking for the truth. And when someone is drowning in their own deception, anyone who asks questions feels like an anchor. I'm not an anchor. I'm not insecure. I'm not paranoid. I was just with someone who needed me to believe I was, so he could justify who he was becoming. Leaving that night freed me. Not because it felt good, it didn't, but because it gave me back my peace. And this time, I know how to protect it.